Hey homies, this is Ebony. Every 84 years, Uranus enters the sign of Gemini and the world goes to hell in a handbasket. Revolutions erupt, wars break out, systems collapse. It's basically the universe's way of saying, have you tried turning civilization off and back on again? The last time this happened, the world was fighting Hitler, the atom bomb dropped, and the digital age was born. No big deal. But this isn't just another Uranus in Gemini cycle. This time, Uranus is teaming up with planets that make even most professional astrologers go, wait, what the hell is that? And when those forces combine, history doesn't just change, it gets shocked. Yes, Uranus dipped into Gemini back in July 2025, but it's retrograding back into Taurus before it settles in from 2026 to 2033. What we've seen so far, that was just the trailer. The real movie hasn't even started. So grab your popcorn and maybe your passport. Things might get dicey, but we'll dive into what Uranus in Gemini really means, the receipts from history, and why this cycle could change everything. Let's set the stage. Uranus represents suddenness, surprise, and the shock of the new. It's restless, eclectic energy, spontaneous, erratic, always breaking pattern. It rules technology, science, and innovation. Everything strange, unstable, or ahead of its time. Uranus goes against the grain. It is future-oriented and eccentric, driven by a need to disrupt whatever's grown stale. People with strong Uranus placements are often seen as being a little bit mad, the kind of mad genius energy that makes everyone nervous until the invention actually works. These are people who think sideways. They live a few years ahead of schedule and they don't wait for permission to start the future. Now, what about Gemini? Gemini is a mutable air sign ruled by Mercury, the planet of connection and cleverness. It governs the exchange of ideas, communication, trade, transit, and the nervous system itself. Basically, how thoughts move through the world. Gemini splits things into two ideas, two choices, two realities running side by side. It's the sign of multiplicity and diversity, of life branching in every direction. Gemini wants to taste everything on the menu before committing to a meal. It's about exchanging thoughts, adaptability, and motion. Versatility is its love language. Gemini values breadth over depth. It knows a little bit about everything and can make small talk with anyone, anywhere. Ask Gemini what it wants to focus on and it'll say, all of it. There's an eagerness to learn, a restless curiosity, a love of change. Gemini's inclinations fluctuate faster than Cardi B was changing wigs at her trial. But that's the point. Gemini keeps the world interesting. Now, when Uranus enters Gemini, it's electricity meeting curiosity. It's restlessness squared. The pace quickens. Ideas, information, and innovation all move faster than our ability to process them. Uranus's lightning strikes to free us from what's rigid or outdated. In Gemini, that lightning hits the networks of thought and communication, the highways of the human nervous system. Suddenly, everything from the media to education to transportation gets rewired. We start thinking in new ways, inventing new tools, creating new languages, literally and metaphorically. It's the scientist, the coder, the activist, and the writer all picking up speed at once. There's excitement, brilliance, and yes, a little bit of madness, because it's hard to hold that much voltage without shaking. Each time Uranus has moved through Gemini, the world has felt that charge. We get revolutionary ideas and people willing to risk it all to live them out. The desire for freedom becomes impossible to ignore. And when people feel that spark under oppression, they don't just ask for change, they make it by any means necessary. Every time Uranus moves through Gemini, lightning strikes the world's nervous system. Information changes form and power changes hands. Rebellion and revolution. From the Peasants' War in 16th century Germany, where farmers rose up against feudal oppression, to America's fight for independence and later its Civil War, Uranus in Gemini sparks uprisings that demand freedom. These are moments when people stop whispering about injustice and start tearing systems down. science and technology. Gemini rules communication and is an air sign. Uranus electrifies both. Each cycle brings a breakthrough that transforms how humans share ideas. In the 1440s, Johannes Gutenberg's printing press made it possible to reproduce text on a massive scale, ending the monopoly on knowledge held by the elite. In the 1800s, the telegraph sent messages faster than horses could carry them, shrinking continents into conversations. By the 1940s, the transistor replaced bulky vacuum tubes, amplifying sound and creating the foundation for all modern electronics, from computers to smartphones. Every Uranus and Gemini era invents a new delivery system for thought, faster, freer, and harder to control. Rumor and fear. That same current can short circuit. Under this transit, communication can mutate into paranoia. The Salem witch trials turned superstition into a death sentence. Centuries later, during the Red Scare, U.S. citizens were blacklisted and imprisoned over accusations of communism, often with no evidence at all. Uranus in Gemini doesn't just spread truth, it accelerates all communication, for better or for worse. Each cycle follows the same combination of rebellion, invention, hysteria. The tools change: printing press, telegraph, radio, social media algorithms, but the voltage stays the same. And now history repeats. Because Uranus and Gemini isn't just something we study in the past, it's happening right now. Uranus entered Gemini on July 7th, 2025, and in just 3 months, the pattern's already back online. Nepal has overthrown its government. France has collapsed too. And in the US, let's keep it a buck, we're in a kind of civil war. Not North versus South this time, but the president and his people versus blue cities, states, and anyone who dares to speak out. Jimmy Kimmel was temporarily pulled off the air after mocking the president. Stephen Colbert's show was canceled outright, silencing one of the sharpest satirical critics of government. Karen Attiah, an opinion editor at The Washington Post, was fired, not for her own words, but for reposting Charlie Kirk's own comments after his death. Universities have lost federal funding for being too woke. Ivy League, state schools, all under pressure to self-censor. The Secretary of War reinstated policies that will make the armed forces less diverse. And museums are being forced to alter or remove exhibits on slavery and colonialism because apparently history needs to be more patriotic. Nothing says land of the free like a cover-up. Masked men, no uniforms, no badges, are abducting undocumented immigrants and American citizens alike under the banner of safety. They're not protectors, they're thugs. And now even government websites are dropping hot takes, literally blaming radical Democrats for the shutdown. Government websites doing propaganda now? Love that for us. Truly the influencer era of authoritarianism. That is Uranus and Gemini. Divisive, rebellious ideology spreading through technological systems until the country itself feels split in two. But here's the paradox of Uranus and Gemini. Every attempt to control communication ends up backfiring because suppression always sparks resistance. In the 1400s, the Catholic Church tried to stop the spread of printed Bibles, but once the printing press existed, underground presses multiplied. Instead of silencing people, it set off the Protestant Reformation. In the 1770s, the British Crown tried to censor revolutionary pamphlets in America. Thomas Paine's Common Sense still sold over 100,000 copies, going viral, hand-to-hand in taverns, read aloud in public squares. Censorship didn't smother rebellion, it poured gasoline on the fire. During World War II, propaganda ruled the airwaves, but those same radios carried whispers of resistance. That is Uranus in Gemini. The truth always finds a frequency. You can try to shut people up, but all you do is push them to invent new ways to speak. Suppression and liberation arrive in the same breath. And it's the same story now. The US is building its own version of TikTok under the banner of national security. But let's be honest. It's not just about data, right? It's about control, surveillance, narrative shaping, and approved speech. But the tighter authority squeezes communication, the faster it fractures. New platforms rise, underground networks adapt, truth finds new channels. With Uranus in Gemini, descent isn't a glitch, it is the operating system. And remember, we still haven't touched the wildest part of this cycle. Most astrologers stop at Uranus trine Pluto in Aquarius or Uranus in Gemini itself. And sure, that's a power shift, right? That's a revolutionary combination on its own. But there's another piece that almost nobody is talking about, and that is Uranus conjunct Admetos coming in 2027. That is where the Earth shatters. Admetos is a trans-Neptunian planet representing compression, blockages, and entrenched systems. It is an immovable object. Uranus is the lightning strike, the sudden rupture. So when you put them together, pressure builds until it blows. Earthquakes, literal or social, shocks that collapse what once looked unshakable. Let me show y'all some receipts. In 1929, the Wall Street crash. Uranus conjunct Admetos coincided with the market collapse that triggered the Great Depression. Overnight, global economies seized. What had felt permanent disintegrated. In 1831, Nat Turner's rebellion. Enslaved people in Virginia rose against slaveholders. The system cracked open violently, exposing the pressure that would later erupt into the Civil War. In 1773, the St. John insurrection. On a Danish Caribbean island, enslaved Africans seized control for months. Brutally suppressed eventually, but proof that even colonial power isn't indestructible. Every Uranus-Admetos conjunction hits with the same note: pressure, rupture, aftermath. In 2027, Uranus and Admetos meet again, and we don't have to wait for the exact date. We're already in the rumble zone. Pay attention to what feels stuck, entrenched, or too big to fail. Those are the pressure points most likely to crack wide open. The sun is going to join Uranus Admetos maybe a day after the exact conjunction, so we'll be feeling all of these energies together around May 25th, 2026. And when the sun comes to Uranus in Admetos, that is a combination for days of physical menace. Sudden physical violent commotions and explosions where life is endangered. Earthquake, broken surface of the earth, newly plowed land, plowed fields. The man who destroys, breaks down, turns something upside down, or who plows the land. This is also a combination for sudden death. So it's quite an intense combination. Gemini doesn't only rule ideas, it rules the body's network too. The arms, hands, collarbones, lungs, trachea, bronchi, and the nervous system itself. When Uranus passes through Gemini, those systems mirror the collective mood: sudden shocks, anxiety, accidents, and overstimulation. We see spikes in bronchial illness, nervous exhaustion, insomnia, and electrical feeling symptoms. The body's short-circuiting like an overtaxed grid. The same static running through society runs through us. As the world rewires, so do our nerves. So what does Uranus in Gemini mean for you? Wherever Gemini falls in your birth chart is where the shakeups land, the part of life that needs reinvention. First house, identity reset. 7th, relationships rewired. 10th, career overhaul. That's your reset zone for the next 8 years. And you'll also want to look at any planets that are in your chart and connected to Gemini. And now we circle back to where we started, lightning and liberation. I've been reading the Parable series by Octavia Butler, who fittingly was born during a Uranus and Gemini cycle. She wrote about environmental collapse, corporate slavery, political extremism, and a nation tearing itself apart while preaching, "Make America Great Again." That was in the 1990s when she wrote that, but she was writing about the current decade. Butler didn't just imagine the future, she recognized the pattern. That's Uranus and Gemini energy, seeing the fractures before everyone else does, translating chaos into prophecy. I'll leave you with some words from Octavia Butler, who wrote about collapse, not to glorify it, but to inspire a different path forward. So why try to predict the future at all if it's so difficult, so nearly impossible? Because making predictions is one way to give warning when we see ourselves drifting in dangerous directions. Because prediction is a useful way of pointing out safer, wiser courses. Because most of all, our tomorrow is the child of our today. Through thought and deed, we exert a great deal of influence over this child. Even though we can't control it, absolutely. Best to think about it though. Best to try to shape it into something good. Best to do that for any child. That's the assignment and opportunity of Uranus and Gemini, to participate in shaping what's next. As this cycle unfolds with all its shocks, inventions, and contradictions, remember, you are part of the circuitry. You are the signal moving through the noise. And the story we tell next depends on how we respond when the lightning hits. So yeah, that's Uranus and Gemini, lightning, language, liberation, and a reminder that the future doesn't arrive fully formed. We write it, speak it, and sometimes tweet it into being. If anyone's still on Twitter, X, whatever we call it. If this hit home, hit the buttons, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you can know when I'm posting. Also, feel free to comment below. Share this video so more people can find astrology that connects the dots. And if you want to know where the thunder lands for you, book a personal reading with me so we can talk about where Uranus and Gemini is showing up in your chart. You can also join my bi-weekly newsletter, Tomorrow's Truth Today, astrology, strategy, and a little bit of magic in your inbox. I am Ebony from Homegirl Astrology, reminding you that change isn't chaos. It's a calling. Peace, homies.